Hi everyone, my name's Anne-Marie. Welcome to this Spellbinders card making project. I'm just going to run through the few items from Spellbinders that we're going to use in this project. For more detailed information, please go to my blog. It will show you everything that I do use. And for Spellbinders, there'll be a link to take you through to their website for you to be able to get more information from them direct or for you to purchase as well. So the items that we're going to use are the tiny sentiment stamps, because Spellbinders, not only do they make dies, but they do make exceedingly good stamps as well. So these are the tiny sentiments that we're going to be using. And then we're going to be using the ornamental doily die, one of my favourites. And then we're going to be using the Botanical Bliss Labels 54 dies, very useful. So those are three of the items that we're going to be using, and we're going to use a base card which is 7 by 7 inches, so a bit bigger than normal, and on our cardometer that's where it sits. 8 by 8 is the largest card, then we drop down to the 7 by 7, so that's the size we're going to use. All the papers that I'm using are from Dovecraft, from a collection called Floral Muse. So it was an older collection, very pretty, but obviously you'll have lots of papers that you will be able to use. I just want to sort of tell you which I'm using for this. So I'm using my bone folder to make sure I've got a good sharp score along the edge, because even though this isn't an Anna Griffin project, I still want that nice crease down the side, because whoever I'm making a card for, I think it needs to look nice and professional. So we're going to do the inside of our card first. Very, very, very simple. The first thing I've done is I've cut a piece of paper from the Floral Muse collection from Dovecraft, and this fits the inside of my card. I've cut it to size. I've used the paper trimmer. I haven't got a die to cut it, I've just used the paper trimmer. And then I've got double-sided tape. Now I've also, you might notice there's a big aperture through the centre of it. So I've cut it to fit the card, and then I've die cut a doily through the centre. And sorry, I was just checking to see if I put a mark on to see which way up it went, but I don't think it matters. So I've used the doily die, and that's not very straight, so not a good start. Not to worry, just pretend it's central. I've used the doily die to cut an aperture through the centre of the base layer that I've created for the inside. And then I've cut a doily to fit, because of the doily die, using the doily, using a plain cardstock that tones in with the papers from the Dovecraft collection. And then I've stamped it using our tiny sentiments, and it says a little dose of happy, and I've used a cherry Stazon ink for that. I've got double-sided tape on the back of it, and it looks a little bit excessive, the amount of tape I've got on here, but I used all my bits up. You know, sometimes you end up with a few little bits, and for this I just used all my bits up. Waste not, want not. I end up with a little line of them at the side of my desk, so I thought it was time to use them. Now that will slot in the aperture that we've cut for the doily in the base layer, so it will just sit nicely in there. And that is our insert. You've got enough room for your to and from, and a little message you could write at the top, you could write through the centre, and it's just a very pretty and quick insert for any card. So I think that will just match perfectly to the outside. So now we can turn our attention to the outside. I've just used my bone folder to make sure I've still got that nice neat edge. And I've got a piece of paper that matches the insert paper, again from the same collection, the Floral Muse. And that's my little arrow, you see, it tells me which is the top of the paper. So that's a good tip, just draw it in pencil, and then if you've got a paper that's got maybe a geo pattern, something on that you need to know which is the top, you know, it's just a good tip to do that. So that's our first layer. And then next I've cut out 2 layers of paper, and one is slightly larger than the other, and again from the same collection I've added some cold gold foil on the edge, and I've got double-sided tape on it, and I'm just going to tell you the width of this. I always forget to give measurements, so we're looking at 33 millimeters, and for those of you that prefer, roughly 1.25 inches. So I'm going to add this through the centre of my card, hoping that I've got it roughly in the right place and roughly straight, more importantly. So I'm just going to trim that little edge that we've got hanging over. There we go. So that's the base of our card. Next, I've cut out the doily again, but I've cut it in half. I've slightly inked the edges with worn lipstick, and I've used a plain cardstock for this, for the doily. And then where I've added the adhesive tape on the back, I've added 2 pieces of foam tape higher up, because what I'm going to do is add the doily above the borderline, and then the second part of the doily I'm going to add below the borderline. Try and put them up so they're roughly straight. There we go. So I know that looks a little bit odd now, but don't worry, it won't be towards the end. So we've cut our doily in half and we've added it either side of our border. Next, we can turn our attention to the labels dies. So I've cut out the largest of the label dies, and I'm simply going to position this over our doily, like so, through the centre. There we go. Next, again, I've cut out the next 2 sizes of the labels, and I've used my Xyron machine to put adhesive on them, and I'm simply going to add them on top of each other. These are flat layers, and then I'm going to add those to the previous layer. Again, all flat layers for this section. And then our sentiment is again on the Floral Muse papers. I've inked the edges, and I've done them alternatively for gathered twig, worn lipstick, and then this one's got a little bit of both on. I've used the tiny sentiment to stamp the word happy birthday, and I've used a cherry Stazon ink, the same ink as I used for the centre. And this section is on 3D foam, so we can add that through the centre of our card. And then to finish the card off, I've made a tiny floral corsage just through a few of the flowers that I've got in my own stash, and I'm going to simply add that to the side of our sentiment, and that is our card finished. Nice, simple, easy inserts with enough room for your messages, etc. And then a very pretty outside with our gorgeous little corsage and the layers that look like they are layers but they're actually flat, and our doily for the background. So the extra in the height is only coming from the corsage. You could just add a bow instead if you didn't want to go to all that creativeness. A few paper curls in there that match, and they're just the tiny little flowers that you can get from so many different websites, just to bring a little bit of a difference to it. Stands up nicely, will look great on any mantelpiece because that's where it's going to go, and I just hope you've enjoyed it. Spellbinders have got some fantastic dies, and they will just blend themselves so well with so many of your creative papers, etc. that you've already got. So you could do this in so many different collections. Please feel free to share any of my videos, including this one, with your crafty friends, because this is, for me, is the year of the share. Let's reach as many people as we possibly can and inspire them to get creative, whatever their craft is, whether it's card making, scrapbooking, decoupaging, woodworking, ironwork, you name it. Just let's all get creative. So I'd like to say thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time.